Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, we're going to talk about rushing to judgment. Aloha! Happy Aloha Friday to you, everybody. If you're listening to this on the day it was released, which is a Friday, where I went to school in Hawaii at the University of Hawaii, we have a thing called Aloha Friday. So we got to dress up in our most awesome Hawaiian shirts, right? Our tropical shirts. And this is certainly one of the ones that I rocked as a younger college student. I wasn't a young college student by any stretch. I was a younger than I am now college student because me and one of my other classmates, fellow Air Force member, were by far the oldest of our class, on par with most of our instructors. But we had this thing called Aloha Friday, so that is why you get the awesomeness of those of you that are watching on YouTube. If those of you are not watching on YouTube, but are listening to this in your ears instead of with your eyeballs, you're kind of missing out on this amazing shirt that I'm rocking. So make sure you shoot over to YouTube and check it out, because this is something, honestly, you probably don't want to miss. Anyway, I'm talking today about rushing to judgment. We all, absolutely, no question about it, no argument from me, have our own preconceived notions about anything and everything. Every topic known to man, known to your world, you have a preconceived notion about. Some little inkling that lends you to tilt one way or another in your opinion of that thing. Right? This is just human nature. It's how we're wired. It's how we're made. It's where our brains work. It's no big deal. When it becomes a big deal, or what makes it a big deal, is when we take those preconceived notions and start applying them to situations that we completely lack any sort of background, understanding, or context in. And as you can probably imagine, this event happened to me recently that's kind of spurring this conversation. I'm at a Chick-fil-A. I had dropped our two boys off at their youth group at our church, and so we had a couple hours to kill. Liz was off doing something else. I forget what she was doing that night. So I was essentially by myself, a couple hours to kill. So I'm like, I'm going to grab a sandwich at Chick-fil-A. I'm a little hungry still after dinner, and I've got some time to kill. So here I go. So I'm go to the local Chick-fil-A. And they're always awesome, as they usually are. They're a little slow because I think the guy working the young man working the register was just kind of having a little bit of a hard time of it. You could just kind of tell he was new. No big deal. And in those situations, most people recognize that and they have that patience. So it took a little bit to order. And there's one gentleman in front of me that was by himself. He did his order, then I did mine, and we're standing there on the side because. You're just kind of waiting for a little bit. I was getting mine to go because I had some other shopping to do, and he was doing the same. So we're standing there, a couple minutes, no big deal. And I'm by the door, and this older gentleman walks in, and he's wearing a uniform, like what I thought he was a sheriff's deputy. He had a handgun on his belt, and he had the dark green uniform that, at least for our county here in Palm Beach County in Florida, the sheriffs, and I think most sheriff's deputies wear that kind of dark green kind of uniform, and that's what it looked like to me. He had kind of the yellow badge or yellow patch on one side, although he wasn't all vested up that you see most sheriff deputies rolling around with nowadays. So I honestly didn't think much of it. Here's a guy, older gentleman walked in, like, okay, yep, got a gun, no big deal. He walks past, goes to the back to use the restroom, and then comes out, and on his way out, because where I'm standing, like, there's the counter, and I'm standing across from the counter waiting for my order, and there's the gentleman that had ordered before me. He's kind of standing over to the side, waiting on his order, and this gentleman who was wearing the uniform, who I thought was a sheriff's deputy or maybe a prison guard type of deputy jail, sheriff's jail. I don't know, what do you call that when the jail that's run by the county? Anyway, that the deputy's man. I thought he maybe was a guard or something. And he stops and he asks the young lady working at Chick-fil-A, he says, hey, can I grab a Coke? And she says, oh, yeah, sure. So he grabs his Coke and he walks out. Honestly, I didn't give it second thought other than being aware there's a man with a firearm, as you should be, that are, walking through, and no big deal. It was evidently a little too much for this other gentleman that was waiting for his food that had ordered in front of me. So he makes this comment. First of all, he was starting to comment about how old the guy was and that how easy it would be to essentially knock him out and take his gun, and he shouldn't be carrying a gun and all this types of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. I'm like, I guess you kind of have a point, but we have no idea. And then he makes this comment of, oh, the gentleman, he wasn't a sheriff's deputy. He worked for and once he turned or was walking the other direction, I saw his patch. It was, some security service. I forget the name of the security company, but he was a security guard, an armed security guard. Okay, cool. And then in thinking about it, yeah, they probably designed their uniforms of their security guard to kind of mimic and look like sheriff's deputies because it imparts more authority. It imparts more security, like all those things that you think of when you think of the sheriff's department, right? So they probably did that on purpose as a security company and modeled their uniforms to kind of mimic that, while not at all impersonating sheriff's deputies. That wasn't it at all, or at least that's not the image they were going for. But it was too much for this other gentleman to handle. And he started kind of making these comments about like, oh, he's too old to be carrying that gun, and what's he going to do, and all this type of stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But then he started railing against this gentleman for essentially freeloading. Like, oh, he just came in here to use the bathroom and then get a free Coke on his way out. Like, oh, that's just sickening, right? And he kind of, like, you could just feel the disgust dripping off of this gentleman. And this guy, he was probably not older, like he was probably in his 50s, I'm guessing, somewhere early to mid 50s. But you could just kind of feel it. I'm going like, this is really weird. Like, who cares? Who cares if Chick-fil-A as a company chooses to or doesn't choose to give a free Coke to a security guard or a sheriff's deputy or anyone else for that matter? To everyone if they want to. Like, it is none of my business what Chick-fil-A does with their resources and who they choose to give it to or charge or whatever. It doesn't matter. But this guy, he continued. He's like, man, that's just so disgusting. He goes around pretending to be a sheriff. And I'm like, well, he wasn't pretending to be a sheriff or anything. He's just wearing the uniform of his company. And I kind of made that comment. I was like, yeah, well, as a security company, they probably kind of mimic the sheriff's uniforms because of those reasons that I just discussed. Like, it probably imparts that kind of authority. This guy, like, he just couldn't let it go. And I'm trying to be like, come on, just give me my food. Like, I don't want to have this conversation with you because it's going to turn into an argument, right? He wasn't trying to have a conversation, right? We've been in these conversations before, these discussions before, where they're not interested in discussing it. They're just interested in making sure that you are on board with their opinion, their pre-existing opinion. And I'm like, and I wasn't at all, because like, we don't know anything about this guy. Like, what he came in, like, yep, we just saw him come in, use the restroom. We don't know at all. So I didn't think much of it. The guy got his food. I got my food. We kind of and it was kind of at the same time. We go our separate ways. He goes to his car and I go out to my car. Well, lo and behold, I get out to my car. And the way this Chick-fil-A is set up, it's a real compact parking lot. They shared parking lot with another big box store and just real tight and all these things. As Chick-fil-A certainly went through their insanity with the whole pandemic stuff and not being able to go inside. And so anyway, Chick-fil-A had, hey, guess what? Hired a security guard to kind of help the flow of traffic through their drive-through ordering lines. And guess who it was? The same guy that had come in to use the restroom and get a Coke from Chick-fil-A. Like, he was a contract employee of Chick-fil-A. And I'm sitting there going, this is so frustrating, because that guy did not deserve at all to be thought of that way, to be judged that way, to be railed against this other random stranger. And it was a stark reminder of like, we don't know. We don't have all the information about everything that's going on. And 100% had that older gentleman that was judging the security guard, had he kind of saw him like, oh yeah, that's like, it's no big deal, right? Sure, I would expect that of pretty much anything if you're working for a company and standing outside all day long in Florida, literally just watching cars to make sure that they're, not driving over cones and cutting in line, like just to keep order, that presence to help keep order. Like, it just became this non-issue at all. Like, what a colossal waste of energy and time and effort. And, those 3 or 4 minutes I wish I could have got back from my life rather than engaging with this guy that couldn't step back out of his own skin. Because he can, like, even after the security guard walked out with his Coke, he's like, oh, I see this all the time. Anytime I'm near a military base, those guys just go and try to get free food in their uniform and stuff. And that's against the UCMJ. I'm like, dude, you don't have a clue what you're talking about right now, nor do you even understand who you're talking about. That kind of does know, right? It's okay to go to a restaurant in uniform, and this guy seemed to think that it was against the rules, like we can't go out to lunch or anything while you're in uniform. But that's besides the point. The point being, we all rush to judgment. We all have situations where we rush to judgment. And it's based entirely on our own hurts, our own preconceived notions, our own damages, our own emotional shortcomings, like all those things. And we tend to absolutely reflect onto others what we feel ourselves, whether that be positivity or negativity. And this was certainly an instance of negativity. And as I started kind of, processing and going through, especially after I realized, like, holy smokes, this guy was completely talking out of the wrong side of his mouth about this situation that he obviously knew nothing about, because if he knew about it, he wouldn't have been saying all these things. And I'm going, how do I do those things? How do I get myself into those situations? And how do I stop putting myself in those situations where I stop giving people the benefit of the doubt? And I've talked about this before, about giving people the benefit of the doubt. And that's what this ultimately is, of when you have these emotions and these feelings and these judgments come across your brain about somebody else in this situation, like, take a step back, man. Like, is it life-threatening, right? Are you a security guard where you've got to make, or a police officer where you've got to make that split decision to draw your gun and fire or not? Like, no, you're standing in line at a Chick-fil-A waiting for your sandwich, bro. Like, take a step back, give some people some grace and some compassion and empathy. Like, what's wrong with that? And are you doing that in your business? Are you doing that with your team members? Are you doing that with your staff? Are you doing that with your clients, with your customers, with your business partners? How are you giving them the benefit of the doubt when situations come up that you may not have all the information in the background on, in order to not rush to judgment? And that's ultimately the intent of this podcast. Not as a judgment towards you, not as a judgment towards, like, oh, you're so bad or anything of that nature, but we all have those moments. 100% guilty of it. Happens a lot to me, despite my trying to be aware of it and my trying to not rush to judgment in other people, like to give people that compassion and that understanding and that benefit of the doubt. So make sure that's you. If you need to, put a little Post-it note on the bottom of your monitor at work, or on your window, or on your mirror, getting ready for the morning. Just write benefit of the doubt. That's all it has to be. Just give them a benefit of the doubt. Maybe something else is going on. Maybe they've got a sick child at home. Maybe they've got an ailing parent that they're dealing with. Maybe they've got other financial problems going on with an industry partner or a business partner, right? Like, you don't know what's happening with anyone else in their private life at any given moment. So reserve judgment is my big takeaway from that. Is that enough? Is that enough for the I don't know what you would call that, therapy session, I guess? Soapbox a little bit, certainly, because benefit of the doubt is very important to me, and helping people understand how that can just absolutely drastically improve every relationship that you have, whether it be personal, in your community, in your business, in your church. If you would give people the benefit of the doubt and a little bit of compassion, man, watch your life change from what it was previously. I dare you. And let me know in the comments, how has that changed? What situation that you were able to see in hindsight after you gave them benefit of the doubt, where you were going down this path of negativity or judgment, and you stepped back and said, like, you know what? I don't exactly know what's going on with you. What is going on with you? Maybe ask, right? If it is that important and that critical, and learn the story and figure out then how to react to that situation, right? And absolutely, sometimes judgment is needed, right? Action is needed. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's okay to let things just be and people be, if you need to. All right, everybody. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Visit kalehouser.com if you want to get in contact. Happy to talk to you about any situation you've got going on with your business. Liz and I are looking forward to dropping some videos here soon. Hopefully, we'll get that engine up and running so we can provide some more amazing content to you to help you in your business. Have a fantastic afternoon, no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.